talk is not medical advice. Yet many people like to pop pimples on the internet. And many people, like myself, like to watch these videos. I have a very special guest here, Dr. Pimple Popper herself. Hello, Dr. Sandra Lee.
Hello.
We're going to watch the most viral pimple popping TikToks that exist on the internet. And I want to get your dermatological opinion and reaction. All right, so here's the first one.
Okay.
What's the first thing you notice?
The first thing I think about is that it's green, and so that makes me think I'm gonna put it in my St. Patrick's Day ensemble. Like I collect the green ones, and green is one of the more common colors of a cyst that is inflamed or infected, and that's because bacteria is involved. So there's probably a little smell to this. Of course, the first thing I think though is that's gotta hurt. Someone squeezing that, and he's not using gloves and all that kind of stuff. For me, this is bad. Because I just think that's gonna make that worse. It's gonna probably get bigger. There's a lot of things wrong with this, but people like to watch it, and I get it.
It's juicy, but
delicious.
It looks infected. It definitely looks infected. I think that a lot of people don't realize how much bacteria is behind the ears.
Well, actually, interestingly, around the ears, the composition of the skin, the amount of sebaceous glands and all that is very similar to the nose. When I do skin cancer surgery and I remove, we will take one of the more common places that we will graft skin is from around the ear because it really matches the makeup of the skin. So that's why there's a lot of blackheads that occur in those areas, and even there's a lot of cysts that occur.
Any advice to someone who noticed that their cyst is a little green?
Well, I bet you it hurts at that point. The pain has a lot to do with that increased pressure pushing on nerves and causing that distress. You know, trying to do that in the most safe way is the best, and that would be seeing a dermatologist. This is what we call an abscess at this point.
It's super common. Yes. Many people have abscesses. Just don't pop it yourself. See a doctor or dermatologist who can give you antibiotics or just something to make sure that infection doesn't spread. Speaking of infections that spread, I've got something fun to share with you.
Oh, really?
This blew up on TikTok because of course it did.
Yes,
when you take a look at that, what comes to mind?
Again, an inflamed, something that she's probably squeezed on. I don't know if she has had a cyst that size there. Either which way, it got really inflamed. Maybe it's an infection with, something that's a little bit more aggressive, like MRSA, or what people call MRSA. That's got to hurt. She's smiling, but I would think that she's crying on the inside because that's gotta hurt.
And this also brings up kind of this triangle of death, or so it's called. Infections in this area can be really dangerous because they are so close to the eyes and the orifices. If it's staph, if it's MRSA, can get infected really quick. Is this a perfect reason to not pimple pop at home?
Yes. Well, I will say that it's really hard for many of us. I mean, if you have a big pustule, like a big whitehead or something sitting out there, I mean, how do you not squeeze it? I think that the problem is that a lot of people can take it too far. And it's easy to do that too. One of my best pieces of advice is to set a timer or something. If you're gonna try to squeeze something, though I don't advise it, you gotta stop after a while because it's really gonna make things worse. And also there's certainly many times in the life of a pimple that you can't pop it. There's no way that you're just gonna make things worse.
So we work with what we've got.
Yes.
Which always includes gloves.
People talk about MRSA, which is methicillin-resistant Staph aureus. Staph is on our body.
All the time.
Yeah, it's in our nose, it's on our body in so many ways, and a lot of us have MRSA, and it just means that you're transferring that to an open sore or something, or a pimple, and that's causing a secondary infection there.
Can we talk about like the nuance of the skin's microbiome? A lot of people feel that they need to overly cleanse their skin. They're like, oh, I don't want bacteria or anything. Cutibacterium acnes, P. acnes bacteria, it lives naturally in our skin. It's a part of healthy bioflora, but it's when it starts to take over, or when something like malassezia starts to overgrow, then it becomes an issue. We share our bodies with this beautiful biome, right? It's only when things get out of whack that they become a little more dangerous. Okay, this one has a sensitive content advisory. YouTube, don't try me.
Okay, they've got one of those patches on. Okay, so
does that look like a regular pimple or a dilated pore, or does that look like something else to you?
I mean, I think that is probably a cyst then that was the opening that the cyst sac wall came out of. And this is another thing I have to say. That's a hydrocolloid dressing. That is not actually pus that you're seeing, okay? That is the gel, the consistency of the hydrocolloid bandage that is breaking down, and what it does is it interacts with any kind of moisture or any kind of liquid, and it kind of makes it this like yellowish pus-like appearance. It makes it look really like potentially amazing to people, that all this stuff came out of you. But I think that there is definitely a purpose to these types of bandages, because they're going to keep your hands off the area.
Speaking of other infections, let's talk about cellulitis. This girl actually shared her journey from just popping a pimple and what ended up happening.
Okay, but I'm gonna have to first say that, I mean, that's not cellulitis.
I was gonna say, watch the way it spreads, because it doesn't spread in the same way. That looks almost like herpes simplex, but I'm not diagnosing anybody.
That's more like impetigo,
Impetigo,
probably.
yeah.
Like, I mean, I see herpes simplex is like a cluster of blisters, a grouped cluster. I mean, potentially, yeah, it could look like HSV, it could look like herpes. I feel like the word cellulitis is overused, but this is me speaking as a dermatologist. So,
but it is.
Like, it is used way too. I can only tell you, in my lifetime of being a dermatologist, I have written the diagnosis of cellulitis. Like a handful. Yeah, like I don't use that term.
Let's define it, because a lot of people do get it wrong. Cellulitis is actually a bacterial infection under the skin, and it spreads quickly. Like, what is the medical?
It causes more like a widespread swelling of the area, and I think this is a secondary bacterial infection that's causing more of an impetigo. You get this kind of orange yellow crust to the area, and that's probably because, again, she's having some secondary infection, maybe like from picking at it and that sort of thing. So it's gone out of control. I mean, it could be HSV. You can't
tell.
Yeah, that again is, those sorts of things are diagnosed by your clinical suspicion. You're guessing, you think you have it kind of narrowed down, but you really have to get a positive diagnosis by most likely swabbing it. Not always, but in this kind of thing, it's a little bit more questionable. But I would say that if I saw this patient, I would probably be putting on both an antibiotic and an antiviral, because antivirals are really safe, actually. Interestingly, they actually treat a part of the virus that is not something that it affects your body, because like it's not actually something that will target and just change anything in your body itself. It specifically targets something in the virus.
Whereas antibiotics, what are your thoughts? And we don't have to talk about this if you don't want to, but what are your thoughts on antibiotic resistance and the overprescription of antibiotics for certain things?
There definitely is antibiotic resistance, but that's just what happens in life. And so the more that something is out there and the more you use it, yeah, you have an increased chance of it. But if you need an antibiotic, you should be taking it.
Exactly. It's better to use that as prescribed as needed, rather than to forgo a treatment that could actually save you scarring, health, etc. The joke is like virology and dermatology walk into a bar. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at this one. This is fun.
Yes.
Have you
I've
seen
seen
this
one?
one?
And it is pretty
surprise.
amazing. Yes.
So this is one of those cases that something might look like a pimple, but it is not.
Yes.
This is a beautiful ingrown hair.
Looks like a blackhead, a dilated pore whiner, and it's been tucked in there. These are unicorns. These are amazing to see. And I wish I had more videos of it. And that has been stuffed in there for quite a while.
I was gonna say, this is like years of treasure.
It's just, you wonder how long this person's hair can actually grow. I wonder what part of the body that is, actually.
Doesn't it almost look like the chin or the neck?
I don't know. I might
Maybe
think that might be
else?
somewhere else on the body.
Okay,
I don't know.
all right.
The skin looks rather thinner.
And creepy.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't know.
There you go. Look at how beautiful
Yes.
that is, though.
Yes.
And it's still going.
And the problem with that, too, is that could potentially just come back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just going to grow back again, because now there's a space right there that,
It's open.
Yeah, that is very curly, too. Yes.
I know. When you have something like that, are you going to stitch that up? Are you going to just treat that with topicals and different acids or retinoids?
Well, I mean, there's nothing really to treat there. You just pulled it out of this open pore, really. But there's this little area that's tucked, and there's probably hair still growing in there. Ingrown hairs are caused because when you pull your hair out, it's still under the skin for a little bit. So when it grows back, it can get stuck and tuck in the wrong way, especially when it's curly. So certain areas of your body, you have more curly hair, and you're gonna have an increased chance of having that. So the best way to prevent ingrown hairs in the first place is to not pluck or wax your hair, but that's really hard to do. Trick is really, ideally, you either want to get laser hair removal or something that you can permanently remove that hair or cut it out, versus trimming it shorter so that it doesn't have a chance to be under the skin and grow and tuck under.
Speaking of different lasers and IPL, do you have a favorite for hair removal?
I think you want to avoid more IPL or general lasers. You want to get a hair removal laser that is very specific for hair removal.
Then we have one more good one.
Yes, you have all the ones that I was planning on TikTok.
Did I steal it from
It's
you?
okay.
I'm sorry, you can still react to them on TikTok.
Yes. This one is they're all cysts, and so it always bothers me because they get inflamed cysts.
Look at, there's a cat in the background.
Oh, I didn't see that.
So cute.
No.
You have to look for the
Yes,
details.
okay.
Okay.
I
But yes.
haven't looked at this because they bother me. Like, I have a problem with really watching them a lot. I mean, those are like those gloves are used by the cook in the kitchen, like in your cafeteria. So yeah, and that's got to hurt, and they're squeezing it, and I just hope that they are successful in getting the whole sack out, because that's the key at this point.
Otherwise, it's just going to keep refilling and coming back.
Yeah, and there's going to be scarring that's going to happen, or it's going to just get angrier. So, you want it to be removed completely.
Fun fact, this is actually part 1 of 2, so we want to see the full reaction on your TikTok channel.
Okay.
I'm waiting patiently. When it comes to pimple popping, there are so many nuances. There are different types of lesions, there are different things that you should and shouldn't do, and while it's fun to watch and react and consume this kind of content, just remember that if you have something that is questionable or infected, get it seen by a dermatologist, get it seen by an expert, and while skincare is amazing, there are lots of things you can use over the counter, but if it looks infected, if it looks red and inflamed, or if it looks green, please take it to someone else, not the internet.
That's right.
Awesome. Any final thoughts?
We'll just be busy over here.
All right. We'll see you on the internet.